Hi, my name is Iqbal Akhtar, and we are very honored today to have Matt Anderson from Mosaic here in Miami, and we'll be talking to him a little bit about his journey professionally, educationally, also personally, in terms of the really wonderful work that he does, both supporting faith communities here in Miami, and particularly sort of the interfaith work that he's involved in, and his vision for what a better world for us looks like. And he's one of the many people who are just he's not someone who is very proud or boastful, but he has done so much, and he's a bedrock of our community here in Miami. So we wanted to just take this time to highlight him and to get to know a little bit more about him, and to celebrate kind of the work that he's doing, and hopefully give some voice and some greater exposure to the work that Mosaic is doing as well. So with that, I welcome you, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. So talk to us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up, and what was your early life like?
Sure. So I grew up here in South Florida in Pinecrest. So Miami is my home, and I'm a product of two diasporas. One, the Haitian diaspora, and the Bahamian diaspora, and those are really two important communities that helped to build Miami. And on top of that, my family is very diverse and multicultural. So from the get-go, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures just in my own family. And on my journey to where I am today, it started, before I was born, and my mom and dad were dating. And when they were kind of planning what our family would look like, one of the things that was important to them was that we'd be a philanthropic family. Mm-hmm. So we, as a family, we focus on social justice, we focus on the arts, education, and Haiti. So a lot of our time and resources has gone to supporting organizations that cater to those arenas. And I went away to Massachusetts for college. I didn't think I was ever moving back to Miami. And in 2010, I had the opportunity to move back to jumpstart my career in commercial real estate. The majority of my career was spent in commercial real estate and banking. But in my 5 to 9, I spent a lot of time supporting a lot of different organizations. When I moved back to Miami, it was a really special time for young professionals because this was a time where at top of mind for a lot of nonprofits was succession planning and making sure they had a pipeline for the next generation of leaders, and making sure that we had the right skills to eventually take the torch. And I was lucky to be one of those young professionals that was identified by the nonprofit community. And they poured a lot of training and mentorship and opportunities for me to hone my skills, which eventually led me to this opportunity. I got to know Roberta Shevin, who was an epic community leader and executive director of what was then MCCJ, now Mosaic Miami. And it was funny because Roberta would take me on meetings before I was even on the board and expose me to a lot of different people from the community. And eventually I was asked to be on the board, and I was the youngest board chair in the organization's history. And then eventually we had some leadership transition during the pandemic, and I was asked by the board to consider leave my role in finance to lead the organization. And it's been the opportunity of a lifetime. It was a critical time for this country, where this country and this community needed an organization like Mosaic Miami that had a long legacy in this community of bringing people together to step up and find ways to create safe spaces for dialogue and to help to heal the community. But when I stepped in, we needed a lot of work on our part to bolster what we had and create a new foundation. And like I said, we've been in this community for almost 90 years. And we started off as a national organization. We were called the National Conference of Christians and Jews, which started in the 1920s when hate groups like the KKK were gaining power in the U.S. And groups from the Jewish community and Christian community came together to do activism. MCCJ was really at the forefront of interfaith relations for this country. And eventually that organization disbanded in 2005. But we were one of the lucky markets to be able to stay and continue to impact. And for a long time, we used the name MCCJ. But as Miami's community became more and more diverse, so did our work, and our name wasn't so relevant anymore. We still honor that history, but we need a new name that was relevant for these times. And through a very generous gift from the Knight Foundation, we got some resources to do a total rebranding campaign. So we hired Jack Hart over at Roar Media to kind of do our rebranding, and he helped us to find the name Mosaic Miami, bringing all the beautiful pieces of Miami to create a beautiful mosaic. Right now, our focus on youth is really important right now. It's really hard for kids to get cultural literacy now, which is something that I was very lucky to have growing up, because in order for teams to really prosper, in order for relationships to be strong, you have to have the tools and wherewithal to be able to understand people that aren't like you, because diversity of ideas makes teams so much stronger. The community also needs a space to talk about difficult conversations, and we do that. For example, last year when things started to take an even worse turn for the worse in Haiti, we held a conversation at the Green Family's Green Space, where we brought thought leaders like Jackie Charles, Dr. Gilda Nicolas, Gypsy Metterlus, etc. Real thought leaders that really understand Haiti and can demystify a lot of tropes and misinformation that's out there. At this period in time, we have access at our fingertips to so much information. A lot of it's false, but how do you decipher that? So creating an opportunity for community members to ask questions to real thought leaders is something that we pride ourselves on, to demystify tropes. We also are at the intersection of the arts and social impact. We use the arts as a jumping off point for conversation. I think the arts are an equalizer. We have a Faith and Film series that we partner with the Gables Art Cinema. You did a panel with us. Actually, our first one.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we also have a series, a Gable Stage, where I do the talkbacks after every production. And I curate these conversations based off the plays to kind of give the guests something to think about on the drive home after seeing the play. We have our work cut out for us.
What are the major challenges you see right now, at this moment with regards to, interfaith relations and kind of, community cohesion?
Sure. So I really believe that, the interfaith work that we started off with our organization, in the 1920s as MCCJ, was really important. But I think that we can just rip up that playbook because it's a totally different world. And we need to build a new foundation, because you have people that have known each other and partnered with each other for decades that aren't talking. And we need to create spaces and vehicles for people to talk about elephants in the room and understand that, this work isn't about converting people or making people think like you. It's about trying to find ways to understand each other and to kind of say, look, I might not agree with you, but I understand. And we need to, create a space where people don't demonize each other, because that's toxic. At the end of the day, we have to be able to live together. For many of us, the evil forces are, against more of us united than separate.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got to figure out a way to support ourselves in those ways.
Yeah.
And then of course there's loneliness.
Right.
A study came out that said that loneliness is up there with tobacco use.
Right.
And I think that more and more coming out of the pandemic, after people living in isolation, I think people are seeking connection. They're seeking ways to build friendships and alliances. And I think that if more and more organizations come together, I think that we can find ways to cure that.
To do that, yeah. Talk to me a little bit about your own spiritual journey.
Well, that might be a loaded question. But my spiritual journey is I'm definitely a man of faith.
Mm.
You can't do this type of work without having some sort of faith compass or belief in something that's bigger than yourself. Um, Prayer is a big part of my daily routine. I pray every day. Um, my my religion that I was raised with is Catholicism, and it's something that's very close to my heart. I also have a Jewish lineage in my family, but I think that faith is really important. I think that in this point in time, I think that faith leaders have a golden opportunity to bring people together. Last year, I was on Capitol Hill with some partners with the Interfaith Alliance, and we were doing some lobbying, and it was so interesting to see the power of the collar, you know, um, and see how disarming um, a faith leader can be to a lawmaker that might be on the other side of the aisle. Because I think that at the end of the day, people have a tremendous amount of respect for faith leaders and value the way they think and value their opinions. And even if they don't, move the needle, in a wide way, I think little wins matter in these days. And I think that if you can bring a Muslim imam, a priest, a Buddhist together in a room and talk about and be able to find common ground, I think that's a huge compass for people if they want to move into talking about politics. Because in America, I mean, the Thanksgiving table is not a friendly place anymore. But if we have those examples and we have people unifying their communities, I think one step at a time we'll be okay. But it's going to take a lot of work.
What about children? What is important? I know that you do quite a bit of work with youth. What are the challenges that youth face?
So I think that the challenges that youth face are that, they spend the majority of their time in school, and cultural literacy isn't necessarily a focus. So I think giving kids experiential opportunities to go to the Holocaust Museum with a group of people that are not necessarily part of their community is a big deal, or to visit a mosque and to understand all the facets of Islam, or even something as simple as going to the Da Vinci exhibit, immersion exhibit that PBS put on, but bringing kids together that oftentimes they never have the opportunity to meet, and teach them how to find common ground, I think is important. Or bring kids from different communities together to understand Miami's challenges and come up with solutions together, I think is a big deal. Because, Miami's been a city, we've always talked about, the brain drain, kids growing up here and leaving. I think that if they were to understand their communities from the get-go and have a stake in the game early on, the idea of them staying here would be more relevant. I mean, with me, I could not wait to leave Miami, but I'm so happy I moved back. And even being here on campus today, it's amazing how many students are on campus. And I think that goes to show the value of FIU and the value of Miami for students from all over the world that now have this place on the radar.
How has Miami changed since you were a child?
So Miami's changed in so many different ways. It's dense. I remember having a conversation with my dad when I was about 18 years old, and explained to him that I wanted to move to New York, and that's where I wanted to live. And he said, Miami will one day be that city where people are walking just like New York. Obviously, we're not at that magnitude yet. We're still a relatively young city, but to see Brickell City Center, or Miami World Center, and foot traffic on the bridge going from Brickell to downtown, I think is incredible. But at the same time, that comes at a cost. I mean, there's been a huge great migration to Miami since the pandemic, which has driven up the prices of real estate that are not sustainable, and it makes it really hard for people that are, $100,000 salary does not get you anywhere in Miami anymore. So the high cost of living is going to be at the detriment of a lot of people in our age bracket, because saving for retirement is not easy anymore. I mean, the United Way always puts out their Alice report, where it talks about the poverty line and those that are, one paycheck away from, or one flat tire away from a disaster. You have people that are making $100,000 in Miami that are one flat tire away from a disaster. So those are tremendous challenges that we have to look into. Sea level rise. I think that's something serious. We had that storm a couple of days in Miami, on Miami Beach. Miami Beach was underwater.
Yeah.
So finding sustainable solutions for Miami, I think is going to be really, really important. In nurturing our youth. And then also, I always say we can't wait for bad things to happen to think it's a good idea to build relationships. I think that we have to continue having these hard conversations and reaching across the aisle and wrapping our arms around people that are not part of our day-to-day community. I think it's going to be crucial.
Yeah. I mean, that's some of the work that I'm doing, especially with Muslim-Jewish dialogue. And I think it's something that, especially after October 7th, it's been a big, like you were saying, a lot of these relationships that had existed for quite a while kind of really broke down, and trying to rebuild that. And what does that mean? And having kind of some of the hard conversations about, not just, I think, about what's happening in other parts of the world, but like what are our values as Americans, and what does it mean to be American in the 21st century? And I think that's a lot of, it's not just something that we're asking, but it's also even the political parties are asking. And some of it is very negative, and it's very exclusivist, to say, okay, this is what American is, and everyone else is not an American and they need to get out, or to say, look, America is a type of diversity, and where it's inclusive. And so I think there are two really competing visions for this country that's been there since the beginning. And I think just kind of the economic and political stress of the last couple of years has really exacerbated that. And it's also really revealed the fact that one of the common challenges that we have is that we don't have a lot of organizations and associations that bring people from different perspectives together, whether it's like social clubs or anything like that. And so people just tend to be more polarized in their own social media ecosystems. So being able to break through that. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate about Mosaic is that a lot of the work that you're doing is in person. And it's, you kind of just have to do the hard work of being in person, showing up, being places to develop those relationships. There's no virtual way that we can substitute for that hard work,
Oh yeah, those in-person conversations. Post October 7th, I've had a lot of tough conversations, and there are nights where I would sit up unable to sleep because I was nervous about the conversations I was going to have that next day. But to be honest, I never came out of those conversations being like, I wish I didn't have them, or that went terrible. I think that when you bring two humans together to talk, I should say two reasonable human beings together to talk, I think that if you listen intently, I think it can be a good thing, because for the most part, we've all had a mother and a father, siblings, children. We've all experienced pain. We've all, like some sports team or
Mm.
some sort of music that we can find commonalities on,
Absolutely.
or a book that we're reading. And I think that if we lean on those things, but also, dig into where we disagree and why, I think it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, even going beyond a lot of times the disagreement, it's very vitriolic when it's remote, but when you're in person, you just can't hold the same anger and intensity for a different perspective. And I think you can also connect, I think naturally, we as human beings want to connect. So I think even if you're from two completely different sort of like ideological perspectives, just physically being in the same room together, you want to find some sort of commonality. And like you were saying, I mean, it's all of those experiences in life. And I think the greatest one, of course, is death. And that's something that we've all experienced and shared. And so there's this really deep emotional connection that can also be that allow us. And we all have the same hopes for our children and sort of fears about the future. And, we all in all, people want to have a peaceful, good life with each other. And a lot of times there are a lot of these mental hurdles in our way that prevent us from being able to do that, so yeah.
I think you're 100% correct. Death is at our age, we're similar in ages, something that's like very much around us. Yes, we've got gray beards that some can say that shows refinement. That also shows that we have some sort of pain coming,
Right.
and our friends have pain coming.
Right.
And being able to process those things is really important, because it's inevitable, and it's something that, for example, I lost my grandmother a couple years ago, right? And it's interesting, like leading up to the death, people are surrounded by you, right? Then you get to the funeral, and then what? Then things are quiet.
Right.
So it's like one of those things where you have to having that support of others and supporting others after that point, is crucial. And also sharing in the different traditions on how to not necessarily navigate, but how to have the journey of death. I think is also like a equalizer that can bring people together.
And we're also at that stage in our lives where we're both like in the middle of our careers, and you're at the same time your parents are getting older and you have to take care, you have that, then you're also taking care of young children as well. And so there's a lot of different demands, I think, in terms of your time and your life. And at the same time trying to make meaning of it and also trying to connect to other people. There's a lot of things that you're juggling, but particularly I think with the issue of death, because we live in a culture that tends to minimize it, or not really, it's not something that's very public in Western society. Kind of death is kind of pushed to the side, and it's about celebrating life and kind of living, your best life, or living, and that's a great thing. But also, to have some sense of perspective. Death gives you perspective in terms of kind of how short life is. What are the things that are most meaningful, and what are the things that are distractions of life? And then I think faith also helps to bring that together as well.
Oh, 100%. And then it's also, like you said, we're only here for a certain amount of time, and time is our biggest asset. So it's like, what do we do with that time now?
Absolutely, yeah. No, and it's and I think just being able to do the work that we do, that's a huge blessing, because there are a lot of people that are not as fortunate as we are to have the positions that we have, and to be able to have the access to people and resources to do the work that we can do.
To live a purpose-driven life is the ultimate blessing.
Absolutely.
Some people, they don't get to do that until they retire.
Right.
And we get to wake up every day and do that.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And I think that, there's also something unique about Miami in that, I've lived in different other places, and there's just a very, I don't know if it's because it's full of immigrants, as a place, or there are constantly people relocating here, but there definitely is an openness and an energy to difference. And there's a lot of creativity here, sort of with the art scene. So there's just so many different things that have come together to make, and like you were saying with the MCCJ, and just sort of even the evolution of Mosaic, the fact that it remained, and it has been able to thrive. In other parts of the country, it didn't do as well, right? Things, kind of fell away, or somehow the increasing diversity of America didn't translate into interfaith or intercultural sort of dialogue and sort of communities. And I think that's something that's a huge blessing here. And the fact that we have all of these, so it's not just like us as younger people, but we're also mentored by an older generation that has a background in history, and they actually have an understanding of how this is done and the resources to help make things happen. That's a huge blessing as well,
Oh yeah, the mentorship piece, the intergenerational piece of what we do is crucial.
Yeah.
And having those veterans that we can call on,
Right.
and also to hold us accountable. And
right.
I think
Absolutely.
but also we have a role in also holding the next generation accountable.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, and that's what we're trying to do with FIU, is also to do interfaith projects, teaching interfaith courses and things like that. That's really important, that this knowledge is something that can be lost, and it has to be constantly taught, and explained and lived and shown, and then also just to give students also a perspective on life, that you need to also give back to the community. You need to volunteer. You need to do something more than just make money. That there is something greater, to your life, and that in those hours after work, you can do things to support and help other people. And that's also, I would say, it's a moral obligation in a way, because we have been granted so much. We have to give back as much as we can. Honestly, we cannot. In the Islamic tradition, at least, the belief is that even if you were to say, you were to thank God for every, and you just to do it for every minute of the day for the rest of your life, it would not be sufficient to thank God for the blessings that He's bestowed upon us. So there's just no way that we can give back to God as much as we've been given, but to do as much as we can to help others,
100%. 100%. And I think that the Bell Chapel here on campus, I saw it today for the first time in a long time as it's coming up. I think it's going to be a game changer for this campus.
I really hope so. Yeah.
I think it's a neutral territory that can, where everyone can feel comfortable.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we're really trying to do as well, is to think about, that's one of the things with such a rapidly changing demographic and sort of scene, is also to create spaces that people can come together in. So, that's something that's been, a big challenge, I think, is like, where are the places where people can congregate? People, especially, as, either basically as the city is reshaping itself and new people are coming in and older institutions are going away. The question is, like, how do we maintain spaces where people feel comfortable, of different groups, religions, cultures, to come together, have dialogue, and that are also value neutral as well. So, maybe people might not be comfortable coming to a mosque, but a chapel at a university would be an open. So there are all these sort of third spaces that can bring people together, and it just curating them, making them widely known and available to people. I think that's also something that's very important.
I think projects like the Underline,
I
think that's a great equalizer in Miami.
Right.
I think Meg Daly's vision of creating this 10-mile course where people can congregate, have conversations, be active together, I think it's a big deal. And it's something, people always talk about being on one side of the tracks, but in the Underline, everybody's in line,
Exactly.
And I think,
absolutely. Yeah.
And I think the Freedom Tower's new renaissance is going to be really important for Miami.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just, creating those physical spaces is kind of an architecture for, interfaith sort of dialogue and exploration. I think that's something that's very, very important. Yeah. And you just see all of there's already so much interest in terms of, one of the other things that I think has been really wonderful is that all of our dialogue groups and meetings, there's always food available.
Oh,
And
yes.
just breaking bread together and having different types of cuisines and exploring cultures through art and sort of music and food, I think is such an important part of the city. You're definitely seeing the diversification of food in Miami already,
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's wonderful. Any last thoughts about kind of your hopes for the future and kind of what Mosaic is doing in the next few months or few years?
So my hope for Miami is that we continue to find ways to not listen to the noise and to come together, human to human, to make things better because things are so complicated. A lot of people are hurting right now. A lot of people are struggling right now, and I think that I don't have a crystal ball, but I think things are going to get worse before they get better for people's financial lives, and that's going to create other challenges for this community, especially as our cost of living continues to go up.
Exactly.
We're lucky to have a mayor that cares and tries to create solutions to help us, but I think that it's gonna take more than that.
Right.
As it relates to Mosaic Miami, we're at an inflection point where for the last 4 years we've been hammering away, creating programming, building a solid foundation for it to live on another 90 years. But now it's time to find resources to allow us to scale. I started my team from scratch, and I've hired some really brilliant people, but I want to be able to retain them,
Right.
and give them a platform to grow. And I also want to be able to recruit more brilliant people to help expand the offerings of Mosaic Miami at a time where the community needs us more now than ever.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, hopefully we have opportunities to work together and develop that vision. Yeah.
Definitely.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.